I don't know. I just have a hunch this is going to be a really good little reopen here. It might not. It could be boring, but just, we the way that the last couple of hours traded today, let's make this filter a little smaller. Let's do 5 there. Okay. So, and plus with NFP tomorrow, an opportunity to sell tonight into a push up is something I'd be interested in, but it's not like the first thing I want to do here at 98, certainly. But, remember the regular session we don't have UB at the high, but the last rotation was interesting, or the last couple of rotations. Here, let me show you what I'm talking about. Structurally, there's a price rejector right there, so if we could get anywhere into the thin volume tonight, I'd be real interested. And this is what I was talking about. That last rotation has unfinished business up there, which doesn't mean that much, but it just means, I think this volume's going to fill in, so there might be an opportunity to get short here. But I'm not going to rush to do that because it could also end up trapping you, and we could go back up to 20. All kinds of stuff can happen when it's as thin as it's right now. But anyway, okay. So my other computer has come up. Let's see how that one looks. That looks good. Wrong report as usual, but otherwise that's good. So that and that. Okay, cool. So basically, let's see, what do we have? We have a little tiny gap down here. Still. Oh, this might not be as exciting as I thought it would, but let's give it a little time. I've got nothing else really going. I was planning on doing some work on this particular machine and watching some Formula One previews of the Grand Prix this weekend. So I figured I would go live with you guys. I didn't open this up to the public, but I opened it up to the people that have taken the tick maker courses. So I posted it in their alert stream too. So we should get a little bit of traction here. We'll see how many people actually show up. Now, this looks like it definitely wants to go higher looking at the volume profile right now. There's liquidity right above us, So I won't just short this blindly, and I might actually get long here, but again, not here. A little further down, I might nibble long, but I don't really like this at all. I like this ledge break. I like a long on the ledge break, but I just wouldn't, get long right here. It's just not a great spot given the little baby range we have so far. So working on your wDoc. Okay, cool. It doesn't need to be real complicated. Just I mentioned this, if you watch the original workshop in 2019, if you watch any of those videos or some of the early setup videos that I posted in 2020, I talk about this document. I have one myself. It's a Excel document where I have everything that I look at, all of the items on my screen and what I use them for. Like an example of an item on my screen is my, it's on 20 seconds right now. Let's put these back on 15. So my 15-second LRC view, that has the following elements on it. It has an equivolume bar. It has wave volume. That's the little number above and below the bar. The width of the bar is equivolume bars. And then it has the LRCs. And it has the bar by bar volume at the bar, the bar by bar delta at the bottom. And then there's also that little super trend stop, but that I kind of turn on and off. That's really more of an educational tool than anything I use. Anyway, so that would be one example. So what do I use bar by bar delta for? What do I use the wave volume for? And it's a really good exercise to do this with yourself, to be as specific as you possibly can in explaining that to yourself, what you do with each element. What do I do with my TPO view? This is normally on my other monitor, my structure, but it's duplicated here for when we're doing live sessions. What do I do with that? What's the purpose of having two different volume profiles? And, be as clear as you can. That's how you arrive at a bulletproof process, is by doing that. Could I please talk to the histogram traded volume and how we would use this? You asked me about that once before, didn't you, Jeff? Didn't you ask me about that in a live session last week or earlier in the week? Was that you or was that somebody else? I'm happy to. I'm just curious if that was you. Yeah, that was you. Okay. So what that's doing, remember in Jigsaw, there's basically three views of volume. One is the volume profile, and see where we are breaking that ledge as I expected. I just still wouldn't get long here necessarily. It just doesn't have any energy. It's too early, but it's an interesting reopen. Anyway, so the first one over here is the volume profile, and that's just to see, the total volume at each price. It would be nice if Jigsaw did a delta at price, as an option. It doesn't. Although we've asked for it, Pete has been mixed on whether he's actually doing it or not, or plans to. Anyway, the next column over is what it calls total volume. And that, until I reset it, that will build a footprint. And it is showing me delta. It's showing me what's trading on the bid and what's trading on the ask. And I color it that way. And I build a histogram. And the reason that I build a histogram there, and I'm getting to the answer to your question, I realize you're asking me about this. I do that because I want to see the shape of the delta, because that's really visual. Like, look at all this selling here that basically got absorbed because we're above that now. So, everybody that tried to sell, somebody sucked them up and we're moving up. So that's really significant. It's also the POC and the VWAP, So that traded volume as a total volume histogram is useful. Now, what I did over here, what's different, let me just show you what it looked like before you started asking me about it, what I changed. If you go to the, remember, those are total, these that I was just explaining. The next column over is called current. In Jigsaw, it's recent and current, or recent and total in Sierra chart. But in Jigsaw, this is volume profile, this is total volume, this is current volume. Okay, so if you look at current at bid and current at ask, the histogram, that's what I'm turning on and off by checking that box. And right now it's on, obviously. So what it does is it builds a histogram. And for example, without having to read this, I can see that there was really good absorption at 1 the last time we pushed up here, 26-0, right? So everyone that was buying up there got absorbed, just like, the sellers down here did when we were down here. So we've got a nice little range established, and you can see where the selling was, and you can see where the absorption, on the buy side was, where the sell side absorption, buy side absorption. So it's building you a real fast delta footprint. And the nice thing about the way Jigsaw does this, when it keeps getting bright like this right here, what it's doing is that's the momentum tails. And right now we're not moving, but when we are, it overlays that over right there. You can see. So it calls your attention to the momentum. And then what it will do, it will reset that number and start over when it trades to a price and then trades away. That's the definition in Jigsaw of current volume. So it's showing you what happened the last time we touched that price, and that's significant. Like the fact that 26 got absorbed up here. Well, if we're trading at quarter or 50 and I see, a 200 lot puke coming, I know we're going to blow right through that. So that's a simple example. Does that make sense, Jeff, to your question? Yeah, and if you want to understand what the different elements do in Jigsaw, there's actually a really good document that I don't know, it's always hard to find in any of the help stuff. This document right here is a kind of hypertext help, and it will tell you, I'll go to where it is in there so you can see. I just put the link in the chat to this. Day trader tool set, depth and sales, and then current trades. It explains right here what they are and how they change. See, the center column shows the number of contracts traded against the inside bid and ask this time around. Note that these columns can be cleared. Yeah, so I can clear them manually, or they clear when we come back to the price. And so that's why the histogram is useful, because it gives you a sense of absorption or not. Like right now, we're coming up there, so you can kind of get a sense by watching the sell side volume, and if there's any high volume nodes that kind of form, you can get in the liquidity, I mean, before and then trade through, and we're above them, that would imply that we're going to puke. And so, for example, we just did. Okay, so that number is no longer. We traded 7 more up there, so now there's a total of 33. But this really looks like it's ultimately going to puke. It's just a question of when. It might not do it on this push, but this isn't a clean top here. So, it's not UB, but it hasn't really exhausted or been absorbed. It's just kind of stopped going up temporarily. So that's why it's a kind of week long, and you can see that in the LRCs as well. So does that all make sense? Hopefully that does. You are welcome. Yep. And, that's one of those things. It takes a long time to totally get the hang of how to read that. I totally get that. It took me years of staring at Jigsaw to really understand what it was telling me. I'd listened to all the educational recordings, and I watched other people use it, and I, signed up for Grady's sessions and watched him trade the bonds, and fell asleep watching that, and then watched, people scalping with it. And the first thing I realized was I had to simplify the Jigsaw default domes, because they literally, it's a tool set. That's Pete's intention. So, the idea is not to have everything, and you need to pare it down to what's useful. And that was the first thing I did, and that took several months. That took a long time to do and get right and get the colors I wanted. So it really, look at the absorption down here at the low. Look at that. You can't miss that. When we traded down there was really good absorption, and that happened to be right on some liquidity. So that's noteworthy. If we got down there again, I'd watch that. If it's going to puke, it's going to have to come up with more volume than that. So if we're on our way down there, we're trading, let's say we're trading 97 or 97 and a half, and I'm seeing, blue side absorption. In other words, buyers being absorbed, and I see that number go up to 200-300, and then we start dribbling down a little bit. I just assume those 41 are going to get run over because sellers are in control, not buyers. So that's a good way to kind of look for a puke. Okay, let's see. What's the criteria you use to trade around liquidity? The criteria I use to trade around everything are these right here. In this stream, the elements of Doc's discretionary, this is my criteria. So with respect to liquidity, these are what I'm looking for. Is there nearby large liquidity? So let's kind of work this little model here. Okay, is there anything nearby where we're trading right now? No, not really. There's some up here, and there's some down here, and there's a lot more down there. It's showing me relatively, and there's a lot up here, right? And there. So right around us now. Okay. If there is, how did it trade the last time we were there? Well, here we got close to this patch, and we sold off right away after we absorbed the first round. So, that's why pukes happen. So basically there was a little puke right there of the last chunk of liquidity. So that still makes me fairly convinced we're going to go up, and we'll take this ledge out. But, if I'm going to trade that, I want to be, like I said, down here would be a really good spot to trade it from, or at least, this, the bottom of this range. And so, it's hard. It would be hard to find a good entry right now to make a long trade, but that doesn't mean it's not going to break these ledges. So if it puked, which way did it puke? Well, it puked up. We have not had a real puke down yet. We had a puke up that sold back down into the range. That's what that was right there. But the pukes have been to the upside, and how do we see that? Well, that's also pretty easy to see. Just look here, this wick, and all the energy so far is up. We gapped down slightly, and immediately that attracted a couple of buyers, but not an overwhelming amount. So, so those are the questions that I'm looking for the answers to, and with respect to liquidity. Does that make sense for you, Pete? If you have a follow up, let me know, and I'll try to elaborate on any of those. Here we are on 0-0 again. Yeah, again, whenever I see one trade, I assume 2.5 is going to trade. That's the idea of the quarters. But that doesn't mean it's going to do it on that very next move up. It just means, if we could break above that, the next place where, anybody's going to step up is on the quarters. There's nothing else that makes any sense. And the quarters don't always stop us from going. But at least if there's going to be a pause, that's where you'll see it. And that's just, it's been that way forever in ES. I've talked about the quarters thing over and over again. It's just a phenomenon. It really isn't anything beyond that. But anybody that's traded ES for any length of time will tell you it's there. And a couple of people commented in the pit that, once you start looking for it, you see it all the time. It's absolutely, and it's not that you're seeing it and it wasn't there before. It's just you got to know what to look for, and that's just one of those things that it's uncanny once you start looking at it, particularly in the overnights. It just does that over and over again. I'm just trying to make these line up here, and I'm not doing a good job of that. There we go. So, once we get moving any one direction, that's always the place I look for a pause. Or another example is if I'm protecting a profit in a trade, I'll wait for it to get past the nearest quarter before I'll move my protective take profit stop, closer down. I'll let it drop. So let's say, we're trading at 98, I'll let it go through 97 and get down near 95, and then I'll move my stop down to 97 and a half. Yeah, because that's the next nearest quarter. That way I don't get swept out of trades that are still going more or less in the same direction. The market, again, the ES just respects those. Okay, probably going to blow this ledge pretty soon. Now look at the volume here. So this is where resetting the current can be useful. If I leave the totals and I press this little brush here, those go away. So I can see where the buyers stepped up, which was right here. And I can, see that the buying tapered off, but the sellers, never got heavily absorbed, as we were saying a minute ago. So we haven't run out of gas or had a massive absorption. We just ran out of buyers temporarily. So I would be watching right now to see if this area that got bought holds, because below that, all of this buying is off size, and that could maybe push us down to an even better spot to nibble, which might be down there. If, in fact, we were trying to go long, and I'm not necessarily doing that here. I'm just kind of explaining what it would look like if I was looking to go long. It's a little bit too thin and too early to get too ambitious about anything I'm looking at here, but that's, I think, pretty likely. That's probably the most likely thing. And so there's liquidity up there. It acts as a magnet, so it's likely that we'll, pop up through the 1 here and maybe go up to 2.5, and you can see the liquidity kind of filling in between, 1.5 and 3. That's what I'm talking about. So let's see if we can get a sweep down through that old liquidity or that old traded volume, which is right there. So I'd kind of watch 99. That's an interesting spot to watch right now. So when you're playing it intertwined with a setup, how can I organize it? High volume reversal setup, for example. Well, you don't want to think directly in terms of setups. The idea of a setup is to simplify the idea of a discretionary trade by making an artificial construct around it. Notice how on this document, I don't have high volume reversal. A high volume of reversal will occur under the following conditions. Time of day doesn't matter. They occur all the time. Typically, the best ones are in the first couple of hours of the day, but that's not always true. But at the open, the open through the first initial balance, there's often really good high volume reversals. So, but otherwise, that doesn't really matter. Direction. Well, again, the high volume reversal setup is we're going one way with momentum. We have to have momentum, and then the momentum suddenly stops. So direction and the LRCs are something I would pay real close attention to if I was looking for high volume reversals, because that's the first place I'm going to see it. Number 3, if there's sweeps, remember, this idea of friendly sweeps. I've talked about that a lot in my live sessions. Let's say I wanted to get short on a break of this ledge to the north here. I don't, but let's say I did. I might stake it out by putting orders up there. You guys have seen me do that before. If there were sweeps up and they were sweeping through that ledge, those are what I call friendly sweeps, because they're sweeping into an order that I want to fill. Up higher up to get short, if let's say I was going to short where this liquidity is. So that's criteria. If I'm looking for a high volume reversal, a sweep up to me that is the place we stop is a really good place to trade a high volume reversal, but that's really lucky when you catch that. When you do it around liquidity, you often get lucky. So that's where liquidity comes into the equation. The next item down, if you put orders there and it sweeps up to you and then it changes direction, well, that's the absolute best way to get yourself into a high volume reversal trade. Particularly, it's around a big fat whole number like this. It might sweep up to 2.5. That would give you a really good short entry where you could scalp some ticks really fast, and it might go back to 95 real fast. You're kind of front running a high volume reversal by doing that. And again, so that's how I'd use liquidity. Range doesn't have anything, high volume reversals, the range is kind of irrelevant because they're about momentum and the change in momentum. And high volume nodes and low volume nodes with respect to high volume reversals can just be places to lean on. Like, if we're coming up really fast through a low volume area into a high volume area, that's an area that we often might see a reversal. But in general, none of those are really, the range in the high volume, low volume areas really aren't relevant. The ones that are relevant for that setup are direction, and if it's sweepy, can I get it swept into the trade, at its extreme? That's the ideal way to try to trade a high volume reversal. Hopefully that answers your question. The trick is not to be looking for setups, Pete, but it's learning to take all of these conditions at any given moment, and then that'll tell you what setups are there. If the market's really range bound around liquidity and high volume nodes, for example, and there's no sweeps, then there's not a lot of direction. The time of day doesn't matter. That's a perfect time to scalp the range with size. That's what I was actually doing midday today after the initial balance session we had with Lee. That was a really good time to scalp the range with size because it really wasn't changing much. Let me show you that point in time. You can see what I mean. So this was, we did the open, Lee's session started, and we wrapped up. Well, I left around 8 my time, which was like right around here. And this is what I mean. We got up there, and then we sat in this range for hours. So it was a really good range to trade. I was generally trading it long because it was kind of leaning up, but there was a couple of good shorts in there. And so that's an example of where, and I wasn't really looking for high volume reversals. I did get one here that I actually was short there, but it was almost by accident. Anyway, so, and then that's what the rest of it. And then the reopen looked like. You can see we're kind of quietly sitting above that high still. So that's kind of what's going on. Look where we are. So we're right back on the other end of this little chunk of volume here. So, if the buyers were going to step up, this is where I'd expect to see it. And they're not really. Well, they kind of are. So there was they stepped up right there. So, again, it's still in a tight little range, but that's reinforcing this little high volume node. See how that just squirted up by 3 ticks there? So that's another example, Jeff, to your question of how you could use that. See the absorption right there was 21-1. And so basically, every attempt to sell down through 99 got absorbed, and we squirted up 4 ticks, just like that. Actually, 5 ticks. We got up to here to quarter. So that would have been a really good scalp long, just watching that. And you can do that. This isn't a great time of day to do that because the chances are we'll ultimately break out of this range. But as long as it's quiet, that's the conditions to do that. And often at night it's like that. And then it'll get going one way or another, and it'll move to the next big chunks of liquidity. So that's an example. Oh, I see some other folks rolled in. Hi, Summer. How are you? I have to tune my mind to seeing red as buys. Well, they aren't always, Jeff. All right. Well, you're still thinking in terms of setup support factor, Pete. Maybe think in terms of what setups are the conditions showing me. Don't think in terms of an idea and then confirming that idea. Look at it in terms of, what are the conditions? What opportunities are there in the overall conditions? That's why I made that document. It's a better way of looking at it in my mind. So Jeff, you said that you're actually sending me this privately. I don't know if you're intending to do that. Please post that to everybody so they can see what I'm responding to. But you said, I have to tune my mind to seeing red as buys. And that's true only when they are, which is, if you need to review this, by the way, we're about to bust that ledge, I think, that I was talking about and get up here to the, 2.5 area where this next liquidity is. I think that's about to happen right now. So let's watch that. Maybe we'll play it. Maybe we'll fade it. This isn't a horrible place to be long for a couple of ticks, but I'd rather fade it up here right now because that would make a nice little symmetrical volume profile. So from 2.5 to 5 looks like an interesting short here at the moment, and particularly with NFP coming up tomorrow. I just can't imagine a lot of buying tonight. So I like that idea better than trying to trade this long. So what we'll do, you know what? Let's trade that with micros, and then I'll start explaining the other. And if we get filled, we get filled. That way I don't have to watch it as closely. I'm going to front run it just a bit here, 4.5, and let's see, make that 2.25 there, although there's some liquidity right there. All right, so that'll give us a little nibble into that trade if it does in fact happen. And while we're doing that, let's see, I need to place to draw because I wanted to explain the answer. You know what? Let me just point to it here and explain it. See, seeing the red and looking at that and saying, okay, that's buying. You say you got to get used to that, Jeff. Here's the point. It's buying only when it gets absorbed and it doesn't go below it, okay? And so that's a very important point. So if we were hitting the sell side and just going down and, trading on the bid for a little while and then going down and then the volume picks up again, so if it was like 16.21 and there was more below this, then it signifies aggressive selling. So the only time that it's buying here, or that, it's aggressive absorption on the other side, so aggressive selling, is when a price absorbs at 1 or 2, a couple of ticks, and it doesn't get away from that. Every time it touches there, it trades back up or back down into the range. That's what it looks like. Otherwise, the color that it's showing you is what in fact is happening. Like it could very easily be here and we could see a lot of sell side volume right back down to here, and that is legitimate selling. See, like that right there, that's actually real selling. That's not, it has to be absorbing it for it to qualify that way. So that's a subtle but very important difference. Does that make sense, Jeff? Does that help? Okay, yeah, and there's some good explanations of that in the Tick Maker, the second Tick Maker course too, some of Lee's material. There's also a really good explanation of that. Let's see, JVC's here. Good. Now I can ask him questions. I know he knows this better than I do. What's the Lee's first session he did on that explained that? Is it why price moves? Is it that one, JVC?
I popped in mid-sentence. So what was the question?
Where understanding that, normally selling on, volume on the bid represents selling unless it's being absorbed, and volume on the ask represents buying unless it's being absorbed.
Yeah, he's gone into that in different ways in a lot of different places, but almost certainly Delta Deep Dive is
the Delta Deep Dive. Okay, could you post a link to that?
You can't go wrong.
That would be helpful. Can you post the link to that in the chat? Yeah. That would be helpful.
Coming right up, no problem.
Yeah, because I get a lot of people are confused on that. CK was out here working with me one-on-one a couple of months ago. Some of you might remember, and that we had to do that on the whiteboard while we were watching the market trade over and over, because it's really hard to beat that into your head. He was getting it intellectually, but he just couldn't wrap his brain around seeing it. And so that's what we did. Every time we saw a block trade, we'd write it on the whiteboard, which I know Felipe had done that too. And then you really understand what's happening. You get a sense of it.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
And Delta Deep Dive is especially one that is not a watch once. I think most any of us who have devoted ourselves to really getting our heads around structure have watched it like a bare minimum 3-4 times. And I know some have watched it 10, 12, 15 times. It's one of those.
Yeah, we hold watch parties for that. People open up a keg and somebody starts grilling up hot dogs. Invite the kids over. So, again, I think we're going to blow this to the upside. So it certainly is a long setup if you got a good entry, maybe on that, absorption right there. But I'm going to maybe fade it like I like to do, just because it's, this is a good example of something that this is a good chance for me to do a quick drawing while we're waiting to see if this happens to happen. If it does this, let's see. Where's the tool? There it is. Okay, so, if you look at the volume profile right now, we're very heavy on volume right up here. And, it ultimately tries to get symmetrical. That's just the nature of a market. And so, this is kind of why I do this, with that and that. I'm looking at kind of, one standard deviation and two standard deviations, or maybe three at the moment for this. So, and the idea is, you'll never totally get run over doing that if you're fading, particularly, this is 0-0 right here. This is a ledge break right here. Usually there's not a lot of energy in here. The total volume is not very high. If you look at that. So, even if it pukes up a bit, this might not even fail, this first one. So this is a high odds trade that this will work well. And you guys see me do this a lot. It takes some practice to learn how to do that and not, add to losers and not, have FOMO. You got to really be precise and really kind of think about where the places to put them are. But this would actually be a really nice, 10 micro trade if you could get, one or two in this area. And then it really caught everyone off guard and we pushed up into this next liquidity, maybe pushed up to the area it was sold off from aggressively during the regular session, which was up here, and that would be a perfect example of range extension. And then we'll probably trade back into the range. And again, just the odds of a big giant move on high volume on NFP Eve is just really unlikely. And this here, I'm bringing up this is the session 30-minute. So you can see what I'm talking about. This area got sold instantly when we got up there, just boom, boom, right back into where we are now. That's what I'm talking about. So anywhere up in here, and that's all the way up to 15. So I would love to get scaled into a short up there. And this is the same thing I was saying during the live session this morning, because, the odds that it's going to go beyond there or that you're going to get stuck there before NFP are just overwhelmingly low. It's a really good opportunity to play just pure odds. It's just not something that happens frequently that it blows one direction or the other the night before NFP. I don't even remember when that's ever happened. So how's that? That's as clear as I could be. So let's see. Yeah, I'm reading the comments about the library items and favorites. Yeah, library management tools. We've gone around in circles a lot with this. It's not that JVC doesn't want to do it. It's that our library hosting doesn't really support it. And to do anything that does is either overly complex or it just doesn't work with our hosting and whatnot. So
they're all messy at best. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. And there's a bunch of them that, well, if you host it with us, it's really good tools. But yeah, you got to pay them a fortune per user. And, I don't understand why, that isn't done better by the people who are in those businesses. But, it's like Zoom. I don't understand how Zoom has been the center of the most significant event in 2 decades, and they didn't capitalize on that. They just.
It always seems like they don't use their own product. They don't eat their dog food.
It's mind-boggling. I mean, it's like they're still at startup. The trying to find the lowest common denominator. The product that is what's the term for that? I'm blocking on what the term is. When you're building a mock-up or a first draft of a product, anybody
prototyping?
Yeah. What's your first minimum viable product?
Oh yeah, MVP. Yep.
Your MVP. Yeah. It's like they're still working with, this is the MVP here that we still have. It's like they haven't built it out yet. It's mind-boggling. Yeah, it really is. Anyway, hopefully somebody will come along with a good alternative. I know we keep looking every now and then. Oh, look where we are. We traded on the other side of that volume. This could be an interesting spot to nibble along, or we could push down the liquidity, and then the short becomes very interesting if we can escape this area, which is, I really want to be short. I just wanted to get a better entry on a puke up. So is this a long, or is it just the beginning of the short? Good question. Tricky spot. You could get trapped short here very easily, and it could go, a good 3 points against you very fast. All the volume has been up here, but I really expect it to get down here at some point. Okay, now the flip book is flipping over, so the order book's flipping over a little bit. So people are stepping up right here a tiny bit. So let's see if that level holds. It's only 2 ticks off of it right now. You can see there's a little bit of arbitrage going on between the micros and the minis too, which we see a lot more of that at night. See, they're off by a tick now and then. And if you're a fast enough player, with a server right by the exchange, you can actually make money off of that by trading blocks of micros against the minis. I do know people that do that. Okay, so NQ is about to break its low. So I think we might have a short setup here. This could be very interesting. I'm not jumping into it yet because so far, there's been some buying. All the sweeps have been up. This is just dribble down stuff. This is the kind that's really tricky to short. But, if you look where we are, we never even came near the gap. We gap and go'd today. So very interesting situation. Really don't like it either way, but really quickly, I'll just bring this over. You can see it. See that's the gap today at the open, and this is where we are up here. So just coming back and retesting that is a ways down. So a short could get really interesting. I just don't want to be the guy who gets sucked into being short here when we really need to clean up the other side of this, or that's a poor weak high already, and it might end up just staying that way. So that could happen too. Oh, actually, it's not. That's because that's the session. No, the session's clean. Yeah, see, that's the problem. The session has a really nice profile. You can see over here on my far left, look at this. This is the regular session. And then this is what we've been doing since. And so, I don't see any evidence the bottom is going to fall out of that. I'd really love to revisit the other end of this range to get short. Then it becomes a really low risk idea. So I still have those orders sitting there. Yeah, see, the buyer came near the liquidity and then the buyers stepped up again right there. So, and guess what? It did that right on a quarter number, right at 97.5. How about that? What a shocker. I still don't like this either way. Long is still too dangerous and short still too dangerous. But it's a very interesting setup. Some range extension down could set up a really nice long. Or, again, if the sellers step up here and we start seeing some volume, then a short down to the gap is a good 20 points. It's actually more than that. Let's see, what is it? We are trading at 98 and it's at about 68. Yeah, it's about 30 points. How about that? Cool. Let's see. I'm just reading what you guys are commenting. Yes, agree with that. Do agree with that. To your question, Pete, what are the process factors to consider when playing ranges? These things are all right here, not to be repetitive, but that's what you should be looking for right there. Those are them, not to put too fine a point on it. What's the recent range like? How, when it gets to the edge of it, how's it trading? The edge of the range got bought. The edge of the range got sold. What's the geometry? Well, we're going down, but it's slowing down the rate because we just had a burp down. That's why we're that way. So that's the geometry. And this is the session and the recent range are the same thing right now. So we don't have to worry about zooming out. So that's how you make those decisions. So let's see, let's put this back over here and then. So, what I always try to do when I'm looking at ranges, again, I'm going to draw real quick because I'm such a good artist. Is it possible to look at, the recent trade or look at, the volume profile and draw lines around what's been happening? And the answer is yes. This is the top of the range. This is the bottom of the range. And we're testing the bottom of the range right now. That's where we are. And that's why the LRC geometry is doing what it's doing right here. The rate we were coming down at slowed down. So that's why the LRCs are shifting like that. So, and that's what you expect to see at the edge of a range. You can see NQ is doing it too. Right there, it's breaking down, but it's slowing down the rate because see, it came down here with 3 big bursts and then it slowed down. And the same thing happened up here. But the volume is so slow that it's a good time to talk about this stuff. Trading it is a different story though, but it's good for examples like I'm doing. So you can see NQ's continuing to break down there, and there's usually good correlation at night. So, again, I wouldn't be long here yet, but it's trading into the ES liquidity, which is what's important. NQ liquidity isn't. And this is all speculative anyway because the equities aren't trading. So, this is a very interesting spot right here. Now, I'd be tempted. Oh gosh, I want to say I'm tempted to buy this right here. But again, that would be a real good spot to get trapped long too. I might just nibble on one. Now, see, now the absorption right there, it shows that a little bit of a battle. That's a little bit of a contested level. Yeah, you could nibble along there and grab some ticks probably. That it's holding right on the 97.5 quarter, but I like it a lot better at 95 where the liquidity is. It's kind of trading through this liquidity and they're getting out of the way. So for that reason, I wouldn't be aggressive long or long at all here. But you could probably get ticks out long even if you were. 95 looks more interesting. 92.5 looks more interesting. Don't like this short because it's going down in these spurts. And that's really hard to short into because you end up being this. It's not a friendly sweep. In other words, you kind of have to. We need the spurt up to short into. We don't want to short into breaking down of the edge of the range because sooner or later it's likely to go back into the range. See, now we're back at 97.5 again. So after trading down to 96.25, yeah. See, that's the thing. It's just. It's not directional enough, and the when it does break a ledge or test the edge of them, it's not snapping back hard enough. So for that reason alone, I wouldn't try to do this either way right now. I really like getting short up here even more now that I'm seeing how this is trading. I would probably front run that this time. If we got anywhere around 0.0 or 1, I'd probably start looking for a short again instead of waiting for the ledge to break like I was earlier. Just because it's clear that, when enough people get involved, this will go down. And that's what I expect to see tonight, overnight. So looking for places to join that are good idea. That's a good idea to look for places to join that. I'm going to move these out just a bit to 20 seconds because the volume is so thin. We're just not seeing what's really going on here. Could even go to 30 seconds at this time of night. You'll see why in a minute. Again, there's no magic number for LRCs. 5 to 30 seconds is what I use. And 15 or 20 is the most common. If the market's in giant ranges, I go down to 10 usually, which sounds counterintuitive, but it's not. Anyway, so yeah, you can see what we did. We just, we reopened. That was right here. We, kind of moved up. There was not a lot of volume in the move up, and it's just dribbling down. This is why this is so dangerous to short into. This could happen again. We could have a push down that just gets sucked right back up, and you're totally offside. So for that reason, and keep an eye on NQ, but not as much of a leader as you would have it expected to be during regular trading hours, simply because again the market's not open. So most of the people actively trading overnight trade ES, some NQ, but it's not like NQ leads like it does during the session. They pretty much go in sync. And if you look at the we're down a fraction of a percent across all the indexes, so we're well correlated. YM is flat, but that's so, nobody's really leading. NQ is a little bit further down, and we can see it doing that. Sometimes that's earnings related, this time of day, or there's some corporate announcements. Once we get into the evening, there's everything's quiet for a while. So let's see. Tokyo Open usually adds some energy. Yeah. The most energy at night comes when Europe gets going. The Middle East and Asia a little bit, but Frankfurt, London, that's when there's the most action in ES. That's like midnight to 2 a.m. my time. Let's see, how often do you play defined range? I play defined ranges when the market is in a range. And there's certain times of the day I don't try to do it, like the open, the close. Never play a range, the open and the close. I'll be right back. I just need to go refill my water here. Well, this is more boring than I thought it would be or hoped it would be. Everybody wants to do what I want to do. They all want to sell higher up. And down here, nobody wants to be the first guys to get short because they're afraid of getting trapped. And look where we traded. See this wick here. I mentioned that earlier. And then, we're right there. We're right on that volume. So it could easily go either way here. So anyway, I don't want to just, talk for hours on end, but I think what I might do here, I'm debating. So this is like the new economy right now. I'm debating. I've been craving a burger from my favorite local burger joint, which is about 20 miles away. So it's like, well, $10 of gas drive to go get a $15 burger. And is that worthwhile? Probably not. But where I live, you can't walk to anything. And that sucks. But that's part of being off the grid, rural-ish. Anyway. So I'm debating that. Meanwhile, we're at 98. See, this is the problem. Now we're back at 98.5. And yes, remember I said you could play a long off of here. It actually was worth more than ticks. You could actually get a couple of 3 points out of that long. So, and that's exactly why I didn't want to short into that push down. But let's see if we can short higher up. I still like that idea better than any of the other ideas that I have right now. Because that sets it up well for the overnight. And then this is what I was about to say when I started talking about the burger place. What I'm thinking here is that we'll go a little while longer and see if this gets going. And if it doesn't, what I'm thinking is I may do another live session during the night. I've got a lot of energy, and I was sleeping earlier this afternoon after I took care of stuff here. And so I'm kind of thinking I got to be up early anyway for my NFP sessions. So I might do like midnight on and do another live session for TRG before I do NFP. If it, there's some good action, like, if we can get up into this area up here, that would be a really fun place to be shorting into 2 or 3 hours before the NFP numbers come out. I would really like to be able to do that. But again, it's not a specific spot, that might end up, right now I'm pointing at like, the recent highs, between like 10 and 15 where we were during the session, but it might end up being 25, by the time we puke up there. So you can't just put orders up there and go to bed, you have to kind of monitor it. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do here is we'll watch this for another 10, 15 minutes. So we'll go about an hour. And if any other, by the way, great questions. If you have other questions, by all means, ask them. I will be happy to answer them. You guys are all asking really good questions. And yeah, 4 hours from now, actually for me, it's a little longer, about 6, 7, 8 hours from now is when it really gets interesting. Because see, this is my time zone here. I'll bring up so I'm right there. And you can kind of see like, Asia is going to be getting going, in earnest in a couple of hours. But if really Frankfurt and London is when the volume gets busy, between Asia and the Middle East opening, there's a little bit of volume. Certainly oil gets busy. Gold used to get busy, but I don't know what the heck's going on with gold. Gold is the most useless trade on the planet right now. I've taken it off all of my screens. It's too silly to even look at it. It's just, it's down in the 1700s. It's mind-boggling. Add Africa to the list. Yes, that's true. Let's see. What other questions did we miss? Oh, there's nothing. Yeah, I'm not even trading GLD anymore, Robert. It's just, it's not. It's pathetic. It's here. Let me bring up I'll bring up my gold here. I'll show you what gold's been doing. Let's see. Where's that? One of my Thinkorswim views still has it. Here it is. I'll bring this one over to the screen. So this is gold over here on the far left. 1737. That's the gold futures. I mean, it's just been dribbling down from 1800. As the world is ending in equities, gold's going nowhere or down. What happened to being a hedge? It just, and I know why. There was a lot of crossover between the crypto and gold, and the crypto bros are all going broke, and so I get it, but it's not even worth watching it. I've been trading copper a little bit because that's a very active industrial metal, and that's been a good trade. In the metals, I like that one the best, but not like a really active trade. I've been mostly doing that with one lot in futures with real big swings. That's something I do now and then. And there's a decent ETF or two in the copper market, but that's one. Assuming you can handle the margin, it's actually a good one to play with futures. under these conditions anyway. So let's see, where are we now? 98.5. Got about 9 more minutes to the top of the hour. And again, the top and bottom of the hour aren't as significant as they are later at night and during RTH, but it's interesting to see, when we go to the next rotation. So let's go ahead and wait for that. And then we'll decide what we're going to do. We'll probably wrap the session up. You can see it's getting quieter and quieter here. The pullback's really clean on both sides. And, again, I think we're going to go up. And I'd love to get short up there somewhere. So maybe that'll happen before we're right on that, maybe right on the top of the hour. But if not, we'll go ahead and wrap up. And if I'm going to do another one, I will live session. I will post another alert. But anyway, this was fun. We got a nice little turnout for an ad hoc session. I know this time of day is good for some people, so that's why I said I would try to do this week. So I'm trying to do it this week. Have questions ready for when I do this. So, you can catch me live for free, guys. Free coaching. 1 a.m. for you. That's what it is right now where you are, Pete. Kenya. Oh, wow. Yes. All right. Well, we'll go 8 more minutes unless this ledge breaks to the upside. So we'll go to till 4 p.m. my time, and we'll see if this goes. If it does, it'll get me short, I hope. If not, I might just hit the market up there. So let's see if that happens. It's getting awful quiet now, though. So I don't know that anything's going to happen for the next few hours. This is not quite as energetic as I hoped it would be, and I still think this is a weak top that's ultimately going to go, but we're going to need a little more momentum. We're back at 99 here. Here you can see a little bit of arbitrage going on there see there's a quarter spread between the mini and the micro. And you can see that's being traded right now. Somebody is arbing that. If I was big enough and close enough to Chicago, I would do that too. That's a good way to make chump change over and over again. See, it always comes back into balance. But while it's out of balance, typically the mini will sit there and the micro will come to the mini as they arb it, and it's a different instrument. People don't understand that. They don't have to always be the same. And they aren't sometimes. They are derivatives of the same index. They are not the same instrument. Cool, Pete. I will try to get one of those going, if not tonight, soon. I'm often up and trading in the middle of the night. That's kind of my MO too. So in the middle of my night, which I know a lot of you, it's your daytime, so that would be good. 6 more minutes. I'll be right back. I'm just going to go check something and then we'll see where we're at. So I'm not wrapping up yet. I'm just going to put my headset down for a minute. Okay, I am Betty. How do I use the flip book? Oh boy, that's a trickier one. Basically, it shows you the collective stacking and pulling at any given moment, and I have it set for 5 levels. I use it primarily to help me understand if I'm wrong. Like, if I'm looking to get short up here, what I would want to see is that the flip book would be blue, like at half and 1. In other words, suggesting the ledge was going to break. And then once we got up here, I'd love to see it turn red and roll over, because that would indicate that everybody's jumping in to sell. And that's what, once I was short, I want to see happening. So I use it to kind of confirm my read so that I'm not horribly offsides at an inflection point. So, I don't use it as a trading signal, but if it contradicts whatever I'm doing, it makes me wary. It's a risk tool. That's how I use it. Okay, so let's see. I was about to say something, and I completely forgot what it was. I was going to tell you guys, this is funny. So I have the house across the street would just changed hands, and the new owner is a guy. It's a couple, and I guess they're maybe a little younger than me. Maybe they're in their 50s-ish. I don't know. And something like that, but have to be close to my age, because the husband really likes classic rock, and it's really funny because every time he's in his car, he's got like the windows open, and it's a 2-story house, and it's elevated above mine. So he's been working in the upper floors of that house, and his windows face some of my windows, and it's pretty far apart. These houses it's pretty rural here, but I can hear him up there singing all these classic rock songs that he's playing on the radio while he's working on he's redoing some of the bedroom cabinets or something up there. And it's hysterical because I don't think he realizes that we can hear him down here. The sound carries because this is not, if you were in, like JVC's neighborhood, that would be normal. People do that all the time. But here, people can hear it 4 miles away. I mean, I can hear the seals on the beach, and the beach is a mile, well, not quite a mile. It's like 3/4 of a mile from me. But as the crow flies, it's a dead shot. So when the seals are on the rocks down there, I hear them all night. It's wonderful. And because the sound carries. And so he's up there, take me home tonight. And I can see him like air guitaring. I don't think he realizes we can hear him and see him. Anyway, it's pretty funny.
You should respond in kind sometime and play something back.
I played a couple of songs loud, just to, every now and then I do that. But normally, I don't think, even when I'm really loud, I don't think you could hear it up there. I think it just, does he have a good voice? Not really.
You just need a nice directional speaker. You just kind of point it his way.
Yeah, exactly.
Send him a message.
Or what I could do is I could get like a parabolic mic and I could amplify him.
There you go.
So so when he's singing, I could really crank it up and play it back for him so he can hear himself. Like monitors, like the stage monitors that he use at concerts. Yep. That would be funny. Anyway. All right. So let's see. We still have not gotten above our ledge, have we? And we still have another minute and a half. Okay. I thought that we had more time. So, and normally the things that I hear here are birds of prey and the turkeys outside, and I'll hear a bull walk down the street. But it's pretty. We don't normally hear people jamming to 70s and 80s rock, classic rock. The other thing that they're doing that they don't realize, but I know somebody mentioned it to them actually this morning, is people here are very sensitive to disturbing the environment with light. So, having like big floodlights in front of your house is really frowned upon. You don't like have, light up your property like a lot of people do in fancy suburban neighborhoods to show their houses off. It disturbs the wildlife, and people here like the houses to kind of disappear into the landscape. So that's the other thing. They've got these big giant lights at the bottom of their driveway, and I think somebody communicated to them that leaving those on all night is really not a good idea here. It's light pollution for us. That was it. Where I lived in Montecito was the same way. People would, there was ordinances against having lights on at night. We have them here too, but normally we don't have to enforce it because everyone understands, The critters like it dark. And if you go out and walk around at night, it's really cool because all the critters are out. I take the dogs out sometimes really late or really early in the morning. And, you see all kinds of cool stuff. See mountain lions every now and then. They're out there too.
Need to go out with the night goggles.
Yeah, I've actually done that in Montecito. I haven't done that here. I don't have any, but a friend of mine has a couple of fancy sets of them. Yeah, that's really interesting, particularly with the birds of prey, because you really see them, and they're spooky how well they hide. Yeah. I was out walking 2 nights ago, and I had just Alice with me, not Dozer. Dozer's the younger one. Alice is more sedate. She was off leash, just kind of walking with me, and I heard an owl, and I'm looking around, and I hear it, and it was on one of my neighbors. It was on their second floor deck railing, and it was so still, and it looked like it was fake. I thought, oh no, that's not a real owl. That's that fake owl they have to keep their, people away from their dogs. But
and then it moved.
and then I looked at more closely, and there was a fake owl there next to it. it was the real owl. It was just sitting there, and it looked at me and it moved, and then all of a sudden it started to fly, and it had probably a 3.5 foot, 4 foot wingspan. It was huge, and I just you just don't see that during the day. It's really was cool. I hear
that's why those little fake owls work so well.
Exactly.
They are that still.
Yeah, except for the owls. The owls know they're fake, but none of the other creatures do. Yeah, it was really funny. He was sitting right next to it. And I was like, for a minute, a double take. Look at this. We're at 0-0 again. We just had a little baby push right up to that liquidity. See that? So, it really wants to go through there, but as yet, we still, one more contract got absorbed. So Jeff, to your question, that's a really good example of how you can use the current versus the total. See how, this was 33 a minute ago, and now one more traded up there and got absorbed, and you can see that one. And then we skipped back down over 775, and then we traded at 5 and then 25 and then 0, and now we're trading it at 3/4 again. So you can see how that price got rejected there very cleanly. And even if you were trying to get filled up there, you probably wouldn't have, because only one contract traded. So whoever's been passively selling there, or whatever group is, so far they're still taking them all. And now look, the liquidity stepped up based on that. See, that's the kind of thing where you'll see, okay, I can safely short there, or, I can act as a magnet, let it come back up and then puke up and get short higher up, So that's a really good kind of reinforcement there. And that could give us an opportunity to sell into that if we can trade back up to that liquidity. You can see that liquidity has kind of been reinforced right there. So to Pete's question about liquidity, there's a really good example of it. So now put that into the framework that I put in the document. Liquidity, nearby large liquidity. Yes, it just came up too. How did it trade in that area the last touch? It got aggressively sold because only one contract got filled there. There's clearly passive selling going on right there. So, and it did not puke. It puked down. So, if you could have got short there or anywhere right around there, you would be nicely in profit. So that's how you use liquidity right there. Assume it's going to trade up to it, see how it does, and then respond accordingly to that. And again, now it's too much in the middle. Down here, it gets interesting, as a long again. But the trade I want to do is somewhere up here. I want to get short. That one contract guy got really lucky. That's the perfect spot. Whoever got that fill right there. So this is where this is useful to, kind of watch as it resets, or every now and then just to wipe it yourself. Leave the total trades there and then, kind of let it trade around that volume. And you can see we've got a little arbitrage going on again. This will probably trade down to here first. That's usually what happens. Like I said, MES typically comes to ES, but there it is. So, and then they both move together. Anyway, so I think we got the top of the hour. Okay, so that was our little burst of activity there. So anyway, I think that was some good examples to look at and some really good questions. So I'm glad you guys were asking questions. So it wasn't a waste of an hour, and we have a good video to stick in the library. And actually, I guess this was sort of pseudo-public, JVC. If you want to throw it on YouTube too, we can.
Sure, can't hurt.
Yeah, and let's see. I'm reading your comments, Summer. How do you replicate the flipbook in Sierra? There's a whole...
I was just going to address that.
Yeah, there's a whole thread on that JVC. Go ahead.
Yep.
I'll let you handle that.
Coming right up. Yeah, it's in the pit already, Pete. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, JVC has started some code for it, and there's a lot of conversation about it, and you can catch up on your own there. There's some sort of micro logic that Pete has in the flipbook that he doesn't want to share. And it's pretty much related to momentum and how he gauges the 5 or 4 or whatever levels that, you can select the number of levels and he weights them differently. It has something to do with that. And that's why they look different. But again, You can read the stream. See, look, remember what I just said about it trading down to liquidity, and then it just did it again. Look at that. We traded right down to the liquidity that's sitting there, around 97 to 95. We didn't get to 95, and now we're back at 97. So, that the quarters once again, and see how the flip book rolled over on that. That was actually a little baby high volume reversal. Look at that. It pushed to a slightly lower low and then snapped right back. See, it just took that spot out right there on a little bit of volume and then snapped back into the range. So that's very typical behavior, particularly in the evenings. All right, I'm going to cancel those orders so they don't fill when I'm not paying attention. And let's see. Cool. All right, there's the link for that. Thank you, JVC. Appreciate it. And oh yeah, there's interesting. Luckily around here, like there's no hunting near where I am. Summer, it's very rural, but it's still residential, and there's no hunting areas even nearby. And we have some zebras here on the Hearst Ranch, and they're wild. There's herds of them, but they were kind of pseudo domesticated at one point. And, so I see mountain lions, there's bears every now and then, raccoons. We have the wild turkeys. Nobody hunts them, so they get pretty big, and they're pretty not afraid of humans. They'll, block your car and squawk at you. You can honk. They'll just look at you. They don't. But, if you go 10, 20, 30 miles away, those are some areas where there's hunting. And yeah, I wouldn't go there at those times of the day. And I wouldn't take
family.
Yeah, and I wouldn't take the dogs off leash there either, particularly Dozer, because he looks like a bear. What were you going to say, Daisy?
I was going to say, we've had a family of geese visiting us recently. About 2 weeks ago, we had 2 full-grown adult Canadian geese, and probably a 6-week-old, not a gooseling, not a duckling, a gooseling. But a very, very, very juvenile, all fluffy, not really looking like a goose yet, show up. And happily, we're, much to my other half's delight, we're eating all the weeds.
Oh, yeah.
We're being weed control. It was hilarious.
They're pretty funny.
They are. We went out and hung out with them for a while, and they were not particularly afraid of us. They didn't want us getting more than about 4 or 5 feet away. Then they were like, hey, and started hissing at us. Like, okay, no, all good. But then a week later, they showed up again, and the young one was a little older, a little more mature. And then the other day, they showed up again. And now the youngster's almost looking like a goose. It's so cool.
They are a lot of fun. I'm scrolling through my my Instagram here where I used to live.
That's it, Charles. Thank you. Gosling. Duh. How did I forget that?
Where I used to live in Colorado was right on a lake, and we had big flocks of Canada geese that used to visit all the time. And I have some crazy pictures. They used to, if I opened the sliding glass doors, they'd come in the house. They're really aggressive and bold, and they're really fun. You're right. As long as you don't get too close to them, they can bite. Let me see if I have it. Oh, the other thing I learned by calling them incorrectly Canadian geese is that they're actually, the correct name is Canada geese. Somebody in Colorado corrected me. I said, look, we have Canadian geese. And they're like, those are Canada geese. I'm like, what's the difference? And
right.
There's such thing as Canadian geese. I was like, oh.
Interesting. Well, that's, I guess if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Are they Canadians?
Yeah.
No,
they're Canada geese. Yeah.
But are they from Canada? Yes.
See, where's my lake? I'm going back in time on my timeline. Let's see. I'm on the ranch now. There's Dozer. So let's see. While we watch this breakdown to the low, I'm watching that too. And so I'm going to talk about that for a second, but I want to see if I can. Unfortunately, on the web part of Instagram, you can't just go back, to a certain time or anything. You have to just scroll. So I'm getting closer here. Let's see. I'm still in Santa Barbara. Let's see. I'm almost in Colorado. That's Santa Barbara. That's the ranch. That's Goleta. We're getting closer. That's Goleta. Let's see. So now it won't scroll back farther. Is that? Oh, what a bull. So that's as far back as web-based Instagram goes. It doesn't go back all the way in history. Well, that's not cool.
That's lame.
Yeah, that's totally lame. Well, anyway, I can't show you my Canada geese. Oh, you know what? I know where I have. Hold on a second. Facebook, that will let me look for it and even search it, I bet. Where are my geese? This is all the joke stuff. This isn't the good stuff from Colorado. Hang on a second. I don't make photo albums. I just post everything. So let's see. This timeline, I should be able to scroll back fast on. Anyway, look at this low. It busted the low here, and it's trying to hold. And look at all this high volume stuff going on, but we're not going up. So this could be the beginning of the drift down all night here. I'm kind of just watching that as I was looking for those pictures. Anyway, somewhere I have my geese. It just came up on my memories too. I remember that. But anyway.
You've got some good pictures of Bosch in there.
Yes, I do. And the local turkeys, you know. Yeah, that was a joke of a friend of mine. We were talking about Bosch, and we were having a Bosch imitation party on Zoom.
Everybody was doing, won.
Everyone was doing Bosch impressions. Yes. Well, that was my winning picture. It was my best one. It didn't necessarily win the contest, but let's see. You can't speed scroll. All right, that's Tacoma. This is going to take too long. Yeah, I don't have any way of just going to Colorado here. Oh, well. So, yeah, look at this spot. It continues to just kind of dribble into that liquidity. Again, I just would not be interested in trading this either way down here. It's too dangerous. But if you could get short up here tonight, that could be a very interesting idea. Anywhere in here, I'm going to be watching this very closely. So that's where we'll wrap it up with respect to this session. So, feel free to send me a message if you would like to, friend Summer. All right, guys, have a good rest of the evening. I may go live again. As I said, I will post another separate link and an announcement if I do that. It'd be really fun to get short. You know, if we get a push up tonight, 5, 10, 15, 20 area, that would just be so much fun to trade because it will bring people out of the woodwork to trade it. So keep your alerts on, your notifications turned on for the alert streams, and I'll let you know if we do it. Thank you for hanging out, JBC. I'll see you, if not tonight, I'll see you guys tomorrow morning for NFP session at 5 o'clock my time.
See you there.
Bye-bye.